Okay, so diving in today, we're going to be exploring a really fascinating concept from the Law of One. And it's something that I think is especially relevant for, those of us who really love to learn and who are constantly seeking knowledge, which I imagine is most of our listeners here. It's this idea of the virgin mind.
Yeah, it's a really potent idea. For anyone who's ever wondered about like the very beginning of consciousness, that kind of pure state before all of our individual experiences start shaping how we see the world, that's what we're going to be getting into here.
And it all kind of centers around this quote from Ra in session 91. And they say, the new and unblemished mind without bias, without polarity, full of the magic of the logos. And that right there, that's the heart of what we're going to be unpacking today.
And it's not just about a blank slate, right? It's not just empty. The virgin mind is actually being described as a gateway to the logos.
Which, for those who might not be as familiar with the Law of One, the logos in this context is essentially that fundamental creative intelligence, the pure potential of, what they call intelligent infinity.
It's like the very energy of creation before it takes on any particular form.
Yeah, and as we go through this, it's good to keep in mind that we're dealing with channeled material here, which offers a really unique perspective on the whole nature of consciousness and where it comes from.
It's a different way of looking at things.
So, our mission today is pretty simple. We want to understand what this virgin mind actually is, why it's so important, and how it connects to the very source of existence according to this body of knowledge.
We're going to break it all down.
So, first things first, when we say virgin mind, what are we actually picturing here? What does that even mean?
Well, Ray Ra equates the virgin mind to what they call the matrix of the mind, which lines up with that very first major arcana card in the tarot, the magician. So think of it like the absolute ground zero of consciousness, the starting point where everything else kind of unfolds from.
The magician, right. The one with all that potential and will, just waiting to be unleashed.
Yeah, exactly.
So what does Ra actually say about this matrix? What's the description?
It's a pretty wild description.
Hmm.
They say, that from which all comes. It is unmoving, yet is the activator and potentiation of all mind activity. Which is kind of a head scratcher, right? Yet it's the activator of everything the mind can do. So it's that pure, untouched awareness that's there even before we start, interacting with the world and forming our own experiences.
It's like the potential for experience, but before any actual experience has happened. So it's not just that there are no thoughts running through our heads. It's something deeper than that. It's the very space where those thoughts could even arise in the first place.
That's it exactly. It's the fabric, the underlying fabric of all mental activity.
Mm.
And what's really interesting is that Ra suggests that, for those who are what they call adepts people, who are really skilled at working with their consciousness, they can actually choose to return to this state.
It's like a mental reset button. Like when things get too cluttered up there, you can just go back to that original state of clarity.
It's something like that. It's about connecting back to that core essence that's, you know, without bias, without polarity, full of the magic of the logos, as that quote says. And remember, that magic, it represents that pure creative force that's at the heart of everything.
Okay, so we have this virgin mind, this matrix, this pure potential. But how does that then interact with all the other stuff that makes up our mental landscape? The parts that are shaped by our experiences and everything.
So that's where the symbolism of what's called the unfed matrix comes in. And it's pure, precisely because it hasn't been, fed, it hasn't been influenced or shaped by experience. It's like, imagine virgin soil. It's incredibly fertile, full of potential, but nothing's been planted in it yet.
I like that. Like before all the seeds of our individual experiences take root and start growing.
Yeah. And Rocco contrasts this with what they call the potentiator, which we can think of as the unconscious mind. They describe it as that great resource, the sea into which the consciousness dips ever deeper. So you have the virgin mind, its conscious awareness, and then you have the potentiator, this vast unconscious with all its potential experiences and processes.
It's like this pristine space of the virgin mind almost at the forefront, and then this massive ocean of the unconscious lying underneath it. How do those two things relate?
This is a key point. Polarity, according to Ra, comes about when the virgin mind starts interacting with the potentiator, with the unconscious. So as we make choices, as we interpret things, as we start forming biases based on what we experience, that's when we move away from that original state of non-polarity. As Ra puts it, the unfed mind has no polarity, just as intelligent infinity has none.
So all those judgments and biases we carry around, they're not actually inherent to us. they come about because of this interplay between our conscious and unconscious minds.
Right. In its pure state, the virgin mind is free from all the karma, the programming, and it's fundamentally aligned with the one creator, with what they call intelligent infinity.
So it's like we all start with this perfectly clear lens, and then life kind of starts adding layers, maybe even some distortions onto it.
Yeah.
And to help us understand this whole concept, Ra uses some really interesting metaphors, right?
Yeah, they're really vivid and pretty straightforward. The first one is the virgin mind as a blank scroll in the hands of the logos, which, makes you think about all the potential for creation, all the different stories that could be written on it, and who's doing the writing ultimately.
A blank scroll just waiting to be filled. What's the next one?
The next one is a window with no fingerprints. So you're getting this sense of purity, of clarity. The light of the logos can just shine straight through, without any distortions or anything blocking it.
So clear, so pure.
Yeah. And the last one is the silence before sound. This one really highlights the stillness, the potential that exists before any kind of expression or manifestation happens.
It's like that pregnant pause full of possibility.
Exactly.
So we're starting to get a sense of what the virgin mind is, but why is this such a big deal? Why is it so important for us, as we're growing and evolving?
Well, according to Ra, accessing this virgin mind is essential for anyone who's seeking real understanding because it allows us to kind of bypass what they call the congested, over-informed mind. We can go back to the basics, to those core principles of real magic, which are really about the will to seek, the will to know, the will to simply be.
So when our minds are just overwhelmed with all this information, all these thoughts, it's not about trying to analyze it all even more. It's about taking a step back, going back to that original pristine state.
Exactly. Like Ra says, the conscious mind of the adept may be full to bursting. It is then that the adept would call upon the new mind, full of the magic of the logos. So when you're feeling stuck or overloaded or lost in all the complexities, you go back to that source of pure potential.
Now, Ra talks about this veil that exists in third density, which is, the level of experience where we're at right now, this veil between our conscious and subconscious minds. How does the virgin mind fit into all that?
So Ra says that this veil, this separation, it's not an accident. It was put there intentionally by the logos as part of the design of third density. And the matrix of the mind, the virgin mind, it acts as the activator within this whole setup. But the direct communication between it and the subconscious is kind of obscured by the veil.
It's like the virgin mind is sending out this pure signal, but then the veil introduces some static or interference.
That's a really good way to think about it, yeah. And this leads into the whole concept of archetypes, which Ra describes as concept complexes of the archetypical mind, which is like this fundamental level of mind that influences everything we experience.
So these archetypes, are they like basic patterns or blueprints of consciousness that are underlying everything?
Exactly. They're like the building blocks.
Yeah.
And Ra says that this archetypical mind is like a library of refined concepts that were created by the logos to, kind of structure and enrich what they call the cosmic or all mind. And here's the connection to the virgin mind, that untouched potential we were talking about. It represents the logos before it manifests into all these specific archetypes.
So it's not just empty. It's actually the gateway through which all those creative energies and patterns of the logos can come through and become accessible to us.
Exactly. It's pure receptivity. It allows the creative force of the logos to flow into being and shape how we understand things. And Ra introduces a whole bunch of key archetypes to explain how this all works.
And we start with the magician, right? Which represents that untouched realm of the virgin mind.
Right. And then that untouched mind starts interacting with the deeper parts of us, the unconscious, which is represented by another archetype.
Which is
Archetype 2, the potentiator of the mind, which is symbolized by the High Priestess. She represents the unconscious, that intuitive, mysterious realm that's full of potential, but often hidden from our conscious awareness.
the High Priestess, the one who holds all those secrets and that hidden knowledge.
That's the one. And Ra describes the unconscious as the High Priestess because it's like, the potentiator of the mind. It's what makes all experience possible. As they say, it's that great resource, the sea into which the consciousness dips ever deeper in order to create, ideate, and become more self-conscious.
So the virgin mind, with all its potential, it dips into this vast sea of the unconscious to draw out the raw materials for understanding and experiencing things.
Yeah, but there's a catch. This interaction, it's not direct. Remember that veil we talked about? Ra says it's not just randomly there. It's a key part of the third density experience. It introduces mystery. and it forces us to use our will and make choices.
So the veil is what makes free will and real learning possible.
Right. And you see this in the symbolism of the High Priestess, too. She's often shown sitting between these pillars of duality, light and dark, and she's veiled herself. So there's this inherent polarity in the unconscious. Like Ra says, the unfed mind has no polarity, just as intelligent infinity has none. The nature of the sub-logos is one of polarity, not by choice, but by careful design. So the virgin mind starts out in this state of non-polarity, but as it interacts with the potentiator, it enters this realm of choices and duality.
And how does all this interaction with the unconscious, how does it connect us to the logos?
The potentiator acts like a bridge. It connects our conscious selves, which start in that virgin state, to the deeper patterns of the logos through symbols and dreams, intuition, meditation, and through the catalyst of our experiences. The High Priestess isn't controlling anything, but she offers the potential. And it's up to our conscious minds that comes from the virgin mind to actually activate that potential.
Okay, so we had the pure potential of the virgin mind interacting with the potential of the unconscious, and this leads to experience. And that raw, unprocessed experience is represented by the next archetype.
Yes, archetype third, catalyst of the mind, symbolized by the Empress. Catalyst is basically raw experience, the stuff that happens before we even really notice it or try to make sense of it. Like Ra says, all that assaults your senses is catalyst. In fact, all that is unprocessed that has come before the notice of a mind-body-spirit complex is catalyst.
So everything from like a random thought to some huge life event can be considered catalyst.
Exactly. And even though the Empress is seen as a feminine archetype, Ra says that the source of catalyst is mostly unconscious. It comes from beyond the realm of thought. And the important thing is how our conscious minds, hopefully operating from that virgin state of awareness, engage with and interpret this catalyst.
It's not so much about the event itself, but about how that pure virgin mind receives it and makes sense of it. That's where the real potential lies.
You got it. And Ra says each opportunity is pregnant with the most extravagant magical possibilities for the far-seeing adept. So even the mundane things can be full of lessons and opportunities for growth if we approach them with that open, unblemished mind. And that brings us back to the main point the Logos is speaking to us through this catalyst, especially when we're listening from that state of virgin receptivity.
The Empress is often shown standing on this ambiguous platform with symbols of both light and shadow. What's that all about?
That platform, it represents the offering of polarized experience that comes with catalyst. The catalyst itself isn't good or bad, it just gives us a chance to choose. And it's our free will, hopefully guided by the clarity of the virgin mind, that decides how we react to that catalyst and what polarity we embrace.
It's like the virgin mind is this filter, a lens that we can use to look at those experiences and then choose how to respond to them.
Exactly, and those responses, they shape our experience.
Which leads us to the next archetype, the Emperor.
All right, archetype of fourth, the experience of the mind, symbolized by the Emperor. This archetype represents everything that we've received, processed, and remembered, basically, the digested form of that raw catalyst. Like Ra says, the broad name for archetype 4 may be the experience of the mind. It is only through the catalyst which has been processed by the potentiated consciousness that experience may ensue.
The Emperor, he's all about authority, structure, and order. How does that connect to experience?
Well, Ra says that the Emperor grasps what it is given. So experience, unlike catalyst, is a consequence of our interaction with it, is what we've taken in, thought about, and integrated. It's not untouched anymore. It's been shaped by our choices and interpretations.
So our experiences become the foundation for how we see the world and ourselves.
Yeah. And Rob points out this really interesting feedback loop that happens here. If we keep choosing positive interpretations, we're likely to see more positivity in the future. But if we go negative, we might just reinforce that negativity. Ra calls it self-accelerating. And each experience keeps building on the architecture of experience in our minds.
So the Emperor is like the solidified lessons, the patterns we've developed through our experiences.
Exactly. And all this leads to the next stage, which is represented by the Hierophant.
Architect V, the significator of the mind, the Hierophant. What's his role in all this?
The Hierophant, according to Ra, he represents the self, both the one acting and the one being acted upon. It's the heart of our mind, the dynamic entity which absorbs, seeks, and attempts to learn. So all those previous archetypes, the potential of the matrix, the unconscious, the catalyst, the experience, it all comes together here.
So the Hierophant is like the I that emerges from all that.
Yeah. It's the identity that receives catalyst, chooses a polarity, and processes experience. It has free will and the will to know. And it starts asking questions like, what am I going to do with all this knowledge? Why am I seeking? Ross says, the significator is the original archetype of mind, which has been made complex through the subtle movements of the conscious and unconscious. The mind itself became an actor possessed of free will, and more especially will.
The Hierophant is often associated with wisdom and spiritual guidance. Does that fit here?
Absolutely. Ra says the significator has a covenant with the spirit. It's that part of us that recognizes the connection to the source, to the logos. But Ra also says that the significator tends to notice the negative stuff more easily. So choosing the positive path, that's an act of will. It shows whether we're leaning toward separation or unity.
So the Hierophant is this self-aware being, aware of its journey, its potential, its biases, and it's making choices that will shape its future.
Right. And those choices, that engagement with polarity, that brings us to the next archetype, the lovers.
Archetype the sixth, transformation of the mind, the lovers, or the two paths. This feels like a really important turning point.
It is. Ra even says that a better name for this archetype might be transformation of the mind. It's the point where we actively choose our dominant polarity, the path of light or darkness. As Ra says, you may see the student of the mysteries being transformed by the need to choose betwixt the light and the dark in mind.
So it's not so much about romantic love, but about this fundamental choice in how we see and interact with reality.
That's it. It's a creative act, choosing our polarity. And it's what drives our evolution. Ross says that the Logos created this whole polarity thing specifically to help us learn more efficiently in third and fourth density. And this choice, this transformation, is the heart of that learning process.
The lovers is often shown as someone standing at a crossroads, facing two paths. What does that mean in this context?
Ra interprets that as the need to let go of something in order to transform. We have to choose one path or the other, and it has to be a conscious, deliberate choice.
And where does the virgin mind fit in at this stage, when we're making these big choices?
Here's where it gets really interesting. Ra says, indeed, both the prostituted and the virginal deep mind invite and await the reaching. So even now, after all the experiences and choices we've made, we can still go back to that unblemished mind, to that pure potential of the Logos to help us make these choices.
So that original clarity is always there for us, even after we've picked up all this baggage.
It is. And what's the final archetype in all this?
The final one is the chariot.
Right, archetype the seventh, the great way of the mind, the chariot. Ra describes this one as being kind of hard to put into words. They call it the path, the way, or the great way of the mind. And it basically represents the integration of all the other archetypes into this ongoing direction for our consciousness.
The chariot, it definitely gives this sense of movement, of direction.
Yeah, it's like the mind itself becomes the chariot, the vehicle for the soul's journey. Ra talks about the kingdom or fruits of appropriate travel through the mind being like a chariot pulled by noble forces. So it's about being in alignment with the Logos.
So it's not about reaching some external destination, but about the state of the mind itself.
Exactly. And Ra gives this riddle about the chariot. It can move, but it's not harnessed to anything externally.
Yeah.
And the answer, they say, is will and trust in the process, alignment with the Logos. It's not about being forced along a path, but about consciously choosing that path.
And the veil, is it still there?
Ra says that in the chariot, the veil is often shown as lifted, but not completely gone. We don't get full unveiling in third density. There's still mystery. But the virgin mind, it's become a structured path now, guided by the choices we've made. And ultimately, the great way of the mind, it's the Logos expressing itself through us.
So from that pure potential of the virgin mind to the journey of the chariot, it's all this ongoing process of the Logos expressing itself through us and our choices. That's pretty amazing.
It is. And it means that, you, the listener, you're not just walking some predetermined path. You are the path, the unique way that the Creator is experiencing and expressing itself.
That's really something to think about. So as you consider everything we've talked about today, here's a question for you. How does this whole idea of the virgin mind, this pure potential, how does it change how you see your own thoughts and experiences? What's possible if we tap back into that unblemished state, even just for a little bit? We encourage you to keep exploring this idea, to look into your own matrix of the mind, and to see how it all connects to your own journey. Thanks for joining us.